Hi guys, welcome to Mindful Vibing Academy. I am Kriti. I am a polymer clay artist and instructor. I conduct workshops for polymer clay beginners as well as advanced learners. This video is primarily focused on how to get started with polymer clay, what all tools will be required if you're just getting started with polymer clay. So this is actually a beginner friendly video if you are just getting started or having the interest to get started with polymer clay. So let's get started. Very first thing that you would require when you're getting started with polymer clay is a parchment paper or a baking paper. If you work directly on the surface, on any surface, whether it be wooden or any other surface that you're using, if it is not acrylic or glass surface, then the polymer clay can actually react with your surface and it can ruin your surface. So in order to protect your surface and also keep a clean surface without dust and lint, we always prefer starting working with a parchment paper or a baking paper. So this will be your base when you get started with polymer clay. This will be your workspace. Next thing that you will require when you are starting to work with polymer clay is the texture tools. So these texture tools usually come in a set of 5 and all these have different set of tips that can be used for texturing purposes as well as for drilling the holes in your polymer clay articles. So this is a very good investment. It is a very economic investment. You can totally prefer investing in this if you're just getting started. So the next thing that you will require is a craft knife, and this is usually used to free hand cut your polymer clay designs. So whenever you're working with designs where you're not using clay cutters, you can totally go for a craft knife and go ahead with a freehand cutting design. Next up is a clay knife, which is technically a cutter knife that you can actually use for clay purposes. I don't really go by the clay knife per se because clay knives are kind of costly when you go online for purchasing. So I always use this kind of cutter knives which help me tremendously when I'm dealing with cutting my polymer clay and then creating blocks out of it. So for the start, if you really don't want to take a risk, you can go for very basic polymer clay cutters. These are very easily available online. I will also be sharing the links to all these products in the description box below, so you can go ahead and purchase these from those websites. And if you want to dive head in and start working with polymer clay, then you can also go for fancy cutters like these, which are also available in the market. And these actually come at slightly higher prices in comparison to the basic cutters. So in the start, I would not suggest you to directly jump and invest in these kind of cutters, but if you are very much confident about pulling off this art and you have already tried your hands on polymer clay and experimented with it, maybe then you can go ahead and think of going for these fancy cutters. Next thing that you would require is clay. Now there are different kind of clays that are available in the market, so you can go ahead and choose your preferred preference of clay, and you can actually get started with Nara if you're just getting started with your polymer clay journey. Nara is a very good clay for the beginners because it gives you a very good experience of how to handle the clay and how the clay actually works. Coming over to the part of rolling your clay. So for rolling your clay, I suggest people to go ahead with a kitchen rolling pin itself. You can also opt for the acrylic rolling. Whenever you work with a kitchen rolling pin, it just works as effectively as any other acrylic roller. So if you're just getting started and you do not want to invest a lot into the materials and the supplies, I would totally suggest you to go ahead and purchase a kitchen rolling pin or use the already available kitchen rolling pin. Just always remember, whenever you're done using your kitchen rolling pin, always give it a nice wash and try to keep the kitchen rolling pin different for food and for polymer clay. So whenever you are keeping them different, it will be a good idea because the polymer clay tends to stick on your rolling pin. So if in case you're rolling using a kitchen rolling pin, always make sure that you give it a really nice wash before keeping it to dry or before starting your next polymer clay project. The next thing that you would require are sandpapers. So these are different grit sandpapers. Whenever you're working with polymer clay, the grit really matters a lot. So polymer clay, you can get started with a 400 grit and can go up to 2500 grit for finishing of your polymer clay article. Now when we talk about assembling your polymer clay article, you would be requiring jump rings. Jump rings are actually these small circular shaped wires that are used to attach your polymer clay articles to the earring fine. Next things that you will be requiring to assemble your polymer clay products after baking are fish hooks. I always suggest the beginners to get started with fish hooks because these are comparatively easier to assemble, and if you are very much okay with assembling fish hooks, you have already tried your hands on it, then you can actually go ahead and get started with the studs. So studs are the procedure of attaching a stud to a polymer clay article is fairly different than a procedure of attaching a hook to a polymer clay article. If you are just getting started, I will always recommend the fish hook. Next thing that you require are these pliers. I usually like working with a normal nose plier which looks like this, and the other plier is a flat plier, a flat nose plier which looks like this. These are the two pliers that I primarily use for assembling all of my polymer clay articles, so you guys can also invest in these. These will come in very handy, and these actually last for years, so you don't really have to purchase one in a few weeks or something like that. It is going to be a very worthy investment in the start itself. So these are the tools that can help you head start your polymer clay beginner journey. If you have any queries or questions related to any of these, then you can ask me in the comment section below. I would love to listen to your feedback and thoughts in the comment section. So let me know. I'll get back to you. Until we meet next, keep crafting beautiful art pieces and stay mindful. Bye bye.